Hey Sean, why the long face, man?
I don't know, David. It seems like all TV and politicians talk about these days are the international debt and how we owe China trillions of dollars and we'll never be able to repay them. So our economy's on a downward spiral to hell.
You don't have to worry about that stuff, Sean. Our economy is gonna survive and be good, and here are 3 reasons why. Reason 1. The U.S. dollar is the official international reserve currency. During much of World War I, America stayed basically neutral throughout the war, while Europe's gold standard was plummeting because they had to take out a lot of gold to fund the war. America's gold standard stayed relatively consistent. This really helped back the American dollar and helped make it worth more than other countries' currency. When World War II hit, most of Europe's economy was still recovering, and they couldn't afford the war by themselves. So many countries gave lump sums of gold to America in exchange for assistance in the war. When the Allies won, America had profited a lot and had a lot of gold backing its dollars. After World War I was over, Europe had almost no currency and very low gold reserves. America then lent out its currency to the affected areas of the world, making the American dollar more available in other countries and more valuable. With so many American dollars floating around in the world and a strong economy to back them up, the U.S. dollar became the official international reserve currency. What this means is that every other country in the world uses American dollars for international trading. This ultimately helps establish our dollar and gives it a good value. Reason 2. Our debt to China isn't really real. Kinda. China, as well as other countries, have trillions of dollars invested in the U.S. Treasury. This investment is the so-called debt that we owe them. This money normally sits in our treasury, and we try to invest it in different companies and stocks to make profits for China and ourselves. But mostly, it's relatively untouched. As long as our economy keeps growing and maintains its strength, China will never need to take out its money invested with us. The only reason they'd need it is if their economy went into an extremely deep economic crisis, and they needed already printed money rather than printing money out of the air and potentially causing inflation. Another problem that China faces with withdrawing its money from our treasuries is that the American dollar is worth much more than the Chinese yuan. So if China took all that money out and converted it to yuan, the Chinese yuan would more than double in value. This would drive up the price for everything in China. It would raise wages, but it would also raise the cost for materials. If this happened, then China would not be a good trading partner for many countries anymore, because the goods produced in China would become more expensive to produce, making it more affordable for countries to simply make the resources at home or somewhere else. This would take China out of the list of economic powerhouses and cause millions of Chinese to lose their jobs. As a result, no one in China would be making money and everything would be expensive. The results for China would be devastating, and they would need to borrow more and more from us regardless to get their economy going again. Now that all the powers in the world are connected, everyone basically has to work together until we fall apart together, or until a huge war erupts, which America will be prepared for. Reason 3. Our economic machine will never stop turning. Before the later part of the 21st century, the world's currency revolved around the gold standard. Governments had large gold reserves, and the amount of currency they could print was reflected upon how much gold was in the reserve. As depressions hit and some countries' gold reserves weakened, the invention of the Federal Reserve was made. This part of the government was allowed to print and loan money at interest rates that represented how much money was circulating through the economy, through imports, exports, taxes, businesses, etc. Now, no country is on the gold standard, and they all have a central bank and a Federal Reserve Bank. Since dollars are not backed by gold anymore, they are backed by the productivity of our economy. Our dollar depends on how our businesses are doing, whether they're paying their taxes, and how much money the Federal Reserve is printing and loaning out. As long as America stays honest and balanced, the middle class keeps working and inventing, people pay their taxes, and branches of government continue to regulate the Federal Reserve, our economy should continue to flourish.